When it comes to weight loss, no two people are the same. That's why Noom builds personalized plans based on your unique psychology and biology. Take Brittany. After years of unsustainable diets, Noom helped her lose 20 pounds and keep it off.
I was definitely in a yo-yo cycle for years of just losing weight, gaining weight, and it was exhausting.
And Stephanie. She's a former D1 athlete who knew she couldn't outtrain her diet, and she lost 38 pounds.
My relationship to food before Noom was never consistent.
And Evan, he can't stand salads, but he still lost 50 pounds with Noom.
I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. Even through the pickiness, Noom taught me that building better habits builds a healthier lifestyle. I'm not doing this to get to a number. I'm doing this to feel better.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
It's Saturday, the 2nd of November. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw Labour publish their first budget in 14 years. Floods devastate Spain, Man United sack another manager, and Tom Hanks loving his own work.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
This week saw Chancellor Rachel Reeves deliver Labour's first budget in 14 years on Wednesday. The run-up to the budget included a number of hints and leaks from Labour, especially around spending cuts and tax increases. On Monday, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson briefed that the new Labour government is all about investment.
It's a straightforward choice between investment or decline, and this Labour government is on the side of investment in making sure that we stop our schools crumbling, for one. That's why in the budget we will be prioritising education priorities.
Speaker Sir Lindsay Howell issued a stern warning to Chancellor Rachel Reeves for announcing fiscal rule changes last week ahead of a formal Commons statement, much to the delight of Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Laura Trott.
Justifying their action based on things that we've done doesn't really seem like the change that we were promised, now does it? We are learning the lessons of why we lost the election, but this government seems to be taking lessons from the worst bits of our record.
The Chancellor wasn't in any mood to be lectured by the Tories, however.
Well, it's good to be explained how to do my job by one of the members opposite who crashed our economy. £63.5 billion of investment into the UK were announced at our International Investment Summit because businesses have confidence that this government is bringing stability back to our economy.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer was at it too, unwrapping a rise in the cap on bus fares, a move quickly christened as bus tax by the Lib Dems. Starmer spoke in Birmingham and called for a realistic approach to the economy.
These are unprecedented circumstances, but the budget the Chancellor will deliver on Wednesday will prevent devastating austerity in our public services.
But finally on Wednesday, Rachel Reeves made history as the first female Chancellor to present a budget to Parliament.
It is the first budget in our country's history to be delivered by a woman. I am deeply proud to be Britain's first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer.
The budget saw a whopping £40 billion worth of tax rises, and Reeves telling the BBC that this is not a budget we want to repeat. She targeted employers, capital gains tax, stamp duty and, as promised, VAT on private school fees. She also increased the duty on private jet hire, upped inheritance and capital gains tax and signalled the end of so-called non-dom tax perks. That extra revenue was ploughed into the NHS and to plug the £22 billion hole in the public finances. The Office of Budgetary Responsibility said the budget won't add much in terms of growth and could even bump up inflation in the short term. Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who announced that he will be stepping down, wasn't impressed by Reeves's first budget either, claiming that Labour broke their promise not to raise taxes.
It's the easy thing for any Chancellor to do, just to pick the pockets of businesses and to raise taxes. But the long-term damage to growth and competitiveness is profound. Now, if she'd wanted to do this, she should have said so.
On the positive side, the International Monetary Fund gave the budget the thumbs up, and both Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the Chancellor were keen to make clear that this budget is just the first step in repairing the UK's economy.
My ambition and my confidence in Britain burns brighter than ever. We have huge potential, and the budget starts to seize that, whilst at the same time putting our public finances on a firmer footing.
Apart from the budget, the new Labour government has been focused on the NHS. This week saw Health Secretary Wes Streeting trying to step away from referring to the system as broken and ask for patience, warning that everything can't be fixed in a single budget. Even before the budget was released, Streeting had already launched a public consultation intended to help drive improvements and feed into a 10-year plan. He said waiting lists are his number one target.
We are announcing our delivery of our manifesto commitments, the 40,000 more appointments every week to cut NHS waiting lists, and not just more appointments, but reformed ways of working.
Saffron Cordery is the Deputy Chief Executive of NHS Providers, and she said that while the budget increase is welcome, the NHS also needs more support for areas like social care.
Whilst we need the investment in getting the waiting lists down, we also need investment across the whole of the NHS. So we desperately need to invest in social care and local government.
This week also saw the Tory leadership contest finally draw to a close, which meant the end of the line for temporary Tory leader Rishi Sunak. But before he left, there were tributes paid to Rishi on Wednesday once the budget business was done, starting with Labour leader and Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his service. Now, of course, we've had political disagreements, but I want to thank him for his hard work, for his commitment and for his decency.
He also joked that given the Tories' rapid changes of leadership that Rishi might well be back in charge at some point, and Lib Dem leader Ed Davey was keen to get in on the jokes too. He chose to poke fun at rain-soaked Rishi's election launch.
Despite our political differences, I've always felt a certain kinship since the general election when he was the only other party leader to get as wet as I did.
Ofcom were also busy taking up a collection, not from Minister Sunak, but they are looking for £100,000 fines from GB News for their overall town hall style event with Rishi right before the general election. Ofcom ruled the People's Forum gave Sunak an uncontested platform to promote his policies, and although the CEO of GB News described the fine as a direct attack on free speech, it was in part because of GB News' previous impartiality breaches, and it was clear to media observers that the show was hopelessly biased.
Do we stick with this plan, our plan, that is starting to deliver the change that you all want and the country deserves? Or do we go back to square one with Keir Starmer and the Labour Party?
This was the final full week before the 2024 US election, and both Harris and Trump certainly ramped up the campaigning. Harris spent last weekend visiting churches and barbershops in Philadelphia, the largest city in the swing state of Pennsylvania, before heading to Michigan for a rally in Kalamazoo. Meanwhile, Trump held a rally at New York's iconic Madison Square Garden on Sunday afternoon. Speakers included Hulk Hogan, Elon Musk, Dr. Phil, and a comedian who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. More on that later. But back at the Kalamazoo, or should we say Kamala Zoo rally, former First Lady Michelle Obama was clear about her views on the former president.
I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little frustrated that some of us are choosing to ignore Donald Trump's gross incompetence while asking Kamala to dazzle us at every turn.
Donald Trump continued to feel the heat on Tuesday over the poorly judged racist remarks made at his Madison Square Garden rally on Sunday. His rival Harris has seen a wave of support from prominent Hispanic and Puerto Rican celebrities, including Jennifer Lopez, whose parents come from the US territory. Tuesday evening saw the Vice President and Democratic candidate address a crowd of tens of thousands at the Ellipse in Washington, the same location that Donald spoke at on January 6th. Kamala's message was quite different, though.
America, for too long we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
But a week is a long time in politics, and while Wednesday should have been a good one for Kamala Harris after her huge Washington rally, instead she found herself wrestling with unwanted input from current President Joe Biden.
A speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
He appeared to be calling Trump supporters garbage in an unasked for response to the ongoing furore over remarks about Puerto Rico from a comedian at Trump's rally. But the White House says it was aimed at the comedian, not all supporters. A hungry right-wing media eagerly seized on the stumble, hoping for a repeat on the reaction to Hillary Clinton's deplorable remark back in 2016. And Harris was forced to put some distance between herself and her Oval Office buddy in an awkward moment this late. late in the campaign.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for.
And if that wasn't enough, we finished the week still talking about garbage. Thursday saw a video of Donald Trump dressed as a bin man struggling to climb into a bin lorry in an attempt to get back at Biden and Harris. This all came off the back of Trump's own rally on Sunday, where a comedian described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage, and Trump's regular description of the US as a garbage can because of so-called open borders. It's certainly confusing, but at least there are only 5 days left. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is staying focused and says she's running like the underdog.
Donald Trump's been running for the last decade. I've been in this race about 3.5 months, and the stakes are so high. Regardless of what the polls say, we are going to win.
It's election season across the world, and voters turned out in droves for Georgia's high-stakes parliamentary elections last weekend, which gave the country the choice between alignment with Europe or Russia. But controversy erupted after the Electoral Commission declared the ruling Georgian Dream Party outright winners with 54% of the vote. Despite reports of voting violations and violence near polling stations, the four pro-EU opposition parties called the result a constitutional coup and have questioned the credibility of the results. Head of the PACE delegation, an international group observing the elections, William Boulay described some of the violations they witnessed.
We noted cases of vote buying and double voting before and during elections, especially in rural areas.
Georgian opposition parties continued to question the election results during the week, sparking protests in the streets of the former Soviet state. NATO and the United States both called for a full probe into the election results, but an official recount saw the result confirmed. This week also saw NATO confirm that North Korea troops are joining Russian forces, but not directly in Ukraine. Rather, they are being deployed to help push back Ukraine's incursion into the Kursk region. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the information was provided by South Korean intelligence sources.
I can confirm that North Korean troops have been sent to Russia and that North Korean military units have been deployed to the Kursk region. The deployment represents a significant escalation in the DPRK's ongoing involvement in Russia's illegal war.
Still to come in the Standout 7, deadly Spanish floods and Man United sack another manager.
Right after this.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
Welcome back.
On Thursday, northern Spain was devastated by flooding. By Friday, nearly 160 people had been declared dead, with dozens more missing after southern Spain was hit by torrential rain that led to the deadliest floods in more than 30 years. With more than 400 litres of rain falling in under 8 hours in Valencia, thousands were still out of electricity and water days later. Dramatic footage of cars piled on top of each other in the streets of Valencia went viral as the authorities warned the severe weather is not over and that more deaths might follow. 3 days of national mourning were declared, and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said the whole of Spain stands ready to support those who have lost their homes and loved ones.
To those towns and cities that have been devastated, we are united and we will rebuild your streets and your squares and bridges. Spain will be with you.
With Manchester United stuck in 14th position in the Premier League table after a 2-1 defeat at West Ham on Sunday, it wasn't much of a surprise that manager Erik ten Hag got the sack on Monday. The club thanked him for his service and recognised that he claimed both the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup as trophies during his 3 years in charge. But with a top 4 finish now at risk, the need for change saw the Dutchman exit. Sky Sports pundit Gary Neville says things couldn't continue as they were.
The fact that it's 14th is just
unacceptable. You can't be in 14th after nearly 9-10 games, really, with the level of spend that's occurred. I was hoping it would end differently, but it's just not been the case.
Former striker Ruud van Nistelrooy took charge of the Carabao Cup game against Leicester on Wednesday, which saw them win 5-2. But it turns out he might not be in charge for all that long. United have spent the week working on a deal for Sporting Lisbon boss Ruben Amorim, and it looks like he'll start work during the next international break in November. Poor old Eric Ten Hag has been quickly forgotten, but Pep Guardiola, whose side got knocked out by Spurs on Wednesday, says Eric will be just fine.
It's our job, we have to accept it. I wish him all the best, he and his family, and of course he's going to come back stronger. And he knows, I know, everybody knows that our job depends on the results.
Tom Hanks has a new movie on the way that sees him reunited with his Forrest Gump co-star Robin Wright and Forrest Gump director Robert Zemeckis. So far, so good, but the movie called Here has been getting absolutely terrible reviews, including a 1-star rating from The Guardian that called it a total horror show. The idea is that the camera stays fixed in one place while we follow the lives of one family through the decades, and the director used AI to de-age and age his cast. Let's just say this is one movie that people are definitely not going to be quoting back to Tom, but he told the Today Show he wouldn't mind if they did.
People yell a bunch of stuff at me. I get Wilson a lot, Brace for Impact, I get that. When someone yells out something from a movie, it's like, here's a nickel, Tom, I'm going to pay you back for that line. You store that up enough, you end up being a pretty wealthy guy.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.